It has always been the pride and joy of the team here at Share Fantastic Travels and Resorts Limited to put together bespoke, unforgettable travel itineraries for our clients. And I am so happy to announce that with the opening of the Brightline service between Miami and Orlando, we're gonna add the train to your trip. So for those of our clients who live, work, or start their trip in South Florida, we are taking you in style with Brightline into Orlando. And boy, do we have a trip for you. We're pleased to offer, starting today, September 22nd, which is also the inaugural trip for Brightline, doing this corridor, what we affectionately call your rail, stay, and cruise option. Did I hear who we? Of course I did. Come on, make some noise. This is gonna be good. Now, even though the Brightline train can get to top speeds of 120 kilometers or miles, you see, my influence is British. I'm in the Caribbean. I'm a Caribbean girl. So we speak kilometers. I know in the States you speak miles. So forgive me if I autocorrect myself. But I think 120 kilometers might be a little quick. So let's stick to 120 miles per hour. Even though the amazing speed of the Brightline train will whisk you quickly through from Miami into the airport at Orlando, don't forget to take in the scenery. There's so much to absorb. But as we're talking about cruise options from Port Canaveral, which incidentally has now booted Miami and Fort Lauderdale, Miami specifically, out of the top cruising destination in Florida to take first position, let's just take a quick look at our cruise line companies and their ships that are currently doing 3, 4, 7, and even longer sailings out of Port Canaveral. First up with Carnival, we've got the Liberty and the Conquest. And of course, you know we cannot leave out the Mardi Gras. Carnival Vista is also sailing from Port Canaveral. Disney has always had her home in Port Canaveral, and at this moment into 2024, she will be still sailing the Fantasy and the Wish, her newest ship, still out of Port Canaveral. Now I remember all the pomp and pageantry that greeted the arrival of Wonder of the Seas when she made her entry into Port Canaveral, and she is still Royal Caribbean's newest ship, home porting and sailing from Port Canaveral. Of course, Wonder of the Seas will never be lonely, as the Allure of the Seas, as well as Freedom of the Seas, Liberty of the Seas, and the Mariner of the Seas are also present in Port Canaveral. And never to be outdone, unless we forget, Adventure of the Seas from Royal Caribbean still sails from Port Canaveral as well. Norwegian has the Epic sailing from Port Canaveral, and drum roll, the Norwegian Viva. Yes, the brand new baby. Oh my God, I don't even need to start talking about the Viva. We're going to be sailing the Viva. Oh, let's keep that cat in the bag for a little bit. But can I whisper, we're going to be on the inaugural Norwegian Viva sails December 2 to 6th, doing a 4-night Bahamas I am not doing a cruise video today, ladies and gentlemen. I need to stay focused, but I just really had to give you an idea of the cruise lines and their ships that are currently sailing from Port Canaveral. And never to be outdone, of course, is the MSC Seaside, and she offers that splash of the Mediterranean sailing right there in the Caribbean waters. So to round it all out, you have more than enough reasons to sail from Port Canaveral. But until you sail, remember, you're railing into Orlando. And what do we have for you? Let's talk about that, shall we? Now, I must really go back to my roots as a Disney travel specialist. And Disney was really that first company that introduced me to the whole concept of stay and sail, combining a Disney cruise with a fantastic time at the Disney parks, as well as the Disney resorts and the Good Neighbor resorts. And we could talk about those for a while. There's so many Good Neighbor resorts that really make that experience, even if you're not at the Disney properties, so awe-inspiring. My own experience at the Buena Vista Suites was very awe-inspiring, and it has really left that image, that iconic feel, that I was still able to be a part of all that was happening, considering that it's just across the street from Disney Springs. Not to be discounted, however, are the Disney resorts, and I enjoyed my stay at Coronado Springs. And there's so many other Disney properties, especially the All Star property, that I offer my clients time and time again. There's always that option right there. Do you choose to do a Good Neighbor property? Do you want to do a Disney property? It's all there for you. And of course, more specifically, are you going to be combining the attractions with your sailing? Remember, you've got the Wish and you've got the Fantasy as your option, sailing right there in Port Canaveral. And as we focus on Disney for a minute, remember, along with the 4 themed parks, Animal Kingdom, Magic Kingdom, and Epcot Center. Okay, I have so many thoughts that come to my head as we get to each one, but I just need to pause here to remind you that we are in the season of the Food and Wine Festival at Epcot, and that is usually such a wonderful event that needs to sit nicely on your calendar. And bear in mind too that it's somewhat of a shoulder season, and so prices may take a dip, but I would still suggest that you book early because it has taken on a fame of its own, As we move a little bit though from Disney, my attention turns to Universal Orlando Studios, the park. Oh my goodness. I remember we were staying at the Hilton Garden Inn, and just from my window, I was able to see that big wheel from Universal, one of those rides, and at nights it would light up. And of course, our stay for that trip, even though it did not include the excitement of the Universal parks, my Halloween experience as a participant in another event had us do a full spook night going through Universal Orlando Studios, and boy did we have a good time. One of the fantastic things that I like about the Orlando area, all the way down to the Space Coast, is that regardless of where you choose to stay, there will be a hotel property that fits exactly into your style and your budget, and there'll be a little of everything that you want to do. If you're thinking about doing the beaches, you must spend time at the Best Western. in Cocoa Beach. That's where I had a wonderful experience being a part of another industry event, and that took us to the Exploration Tower. Beautiful, beautiful, magnificent experience, and watching the ships come in or even seeing them docked from that location made it worth that trip. And included in that one day's event, we had a time with astronauts at the Kennedy Space Center. As a matter of fact, we had lunch with an astronaut. We had a tour of the facilities, and that is available for your clients because you should take advantage of all that is available just along the Space Coast. And it's hard to talk about the Space Coast, it's hard to talk about that area right there without talking about the dining and the fresh catch, the fresh food that you can procure. But one of my wonderful dining experiences was going into Cocoa Beach, into the town, to a little restaurant called Rusty's, and I had the best white fish. This was a fish batter with fish and chips, so with chips. But to surprise me, my host decided that they would order and surprise me with not only the meal, but the beverage. And can anybody even imagine the surprise on my face when the bartender popped open a bottle of, yes, you guessed it, Red Stripe beer. There were several dining opportunities right there on Cocoa Beach. And to be frank with you, the names of a lot of these restaurants have slipped to me because as I delved into the goodness of the cuisine that was laid out in front of me, I was more interested in the food than the names. But you get my drift. Good food, fresh catch, always ready for you when you're there is what you will enjoy. A property that I enjoy offering my clients is the 4 Points right there in Cocoa Beach, and it has a surf shop. This is of particular significance because many of my clients, they do enjoy taking on the surf, and so this is just an iconic location to spend your classic 2 or 3 pre-cruise or post-cruise days right there on the beach. Not to be left out, of course, are the other properties. There's the Hilton, there's the Doubletree, and guys, I'm doing all of this from memory. So if you would only imagine as we go through and pick out those properties that would suit our clients, the list is absolutely endless. For those clients who want to move a little bit away from the beach, want to get a little bit away from the high energy activities, there's International Drive. And International Drive opens you up to a whole new experience, ranging from top class dining, dinner shows, endless hotel possibilities, convention sites, you name it. International Drive is just the place to be. And I think we'll need to do one full video on all there is to do just on iDrive. Now, many of my clients are international, and so while they have flown in to do a cruise, there's some other things on their agenda, including shopping. And I kid you not, we have found that shopping in Orlando for just about everything, clothing. So you go through the apparel section, you go through the beauty section, household items even. There's just such good shopping in Orlando that you would be remiss not to at least go to the outlet malls, not to go to the Floridian. Oh, you know, there are days when my trips are just for shopping because there is just so much ground to cover when groups decide, okay, it's time to shop. Now, I think I'll close this video just to focus on the hotels that are very, very close to MCO, the Orlando International Airport, because the offerings, the quality of the properties. We're talking about my favorite, the signature for me is Wingate by Wyndham, but then there's a Spring Hill, there's a Ramada Inn and Suites. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to go through memory here. There is Homewood, all the iconic brands that you would have grown to know and love. They are right there, just within the distance from the airport that makes that trip after you have had an international flight in not such a long drive. And if I were to speak of these hotels, I love the fact that nearly all of the ones I have stayed in and offered my clients offer that hot, expanded American breakfast. So it's a win-win all around. And then, of course, getting around in Orlando, it's a breeze. You can think of the hotels that have the shuttle service. You can also think of the fact that Uber and Lyft, they are so accessible. Mayor's Transportation Company, and then all the other individual transportation providers who offer impeccable service. They just make being in Orlando for that vacay easy. So, in short, having said all that I have said, is it possible for you to do 2 or 3 or even 5 nights pre or post cruise in Orlando, Space Coast, International Drive? Those are my 3 main areas that we're focusing today on. Absolutely. Will it leave you with a desire to come back for more? Most definitely. So the only question that is left to be asked, will you be booking this for your next cruise instead of wishing in and whoopsing out? Your only answer should be a resounding yes. And if that is the value proposition that suits you, you know what to do. It is always most important to book your travel with your trusted travel advisors. We know the nooks and the crannies, and we ensure that every trip leaves you spellbound and wanting for more. I'm Sheri. Ciao for now.